CNN's Kara Scannell with us now. So, Kara, you have some new reporting on the tactics that we understand the defense team, Donald Trump's team, will take tomorrow.
Well, Jake, it seems like they're going to continue to focus on trying to undermine Michael Cohen's credibility and focus him on suggesting that he is a liar. And the one area that they didn't get into, but that they've said that they want to, is some of Cohen's past statements under oath. That is when he pled guilty. And then also when he testified at the civil fraud trial in the fall. It was then when Michael Cohen was on the stand, he went back and forth saying that he had previously lied when he pleaded guilty because he's saying that he wasn't guilty of tax fraud and these other charges. The prosecution tried to get ahead of that when Cohen was under direct examination, but it's an area that Trump's lawyers are expected to try to dig more into, to try to suggest to the jury that Cohen is not afraid to lie and he's not afraid to lie under oath. They also haven't gotten into any of the substance of the actual criminal allegations in this case, so we'll look for them to ask Cohen some questions about his alleged conversations with Donald Trump.
So the defense, Donald Trump's team says they plan to spend most of tomorrow on cross. But Michael Cohen is expected to be the prosecution's last witness. So what does the timeline look like for the rest of the trial? I mean, could this be over by next week?
It could, Jake. I mean, things seem like they have really sped up. Now, Michael Cohen is expected to be the prosecution's last witness. They said they're not going to call anyone else. Trump's lawyers said that they might call an expert, but they won't know until they have a discussion with the judge tomorrow afternoon about what the guy can testify about and what he can't testify about. If they don't call that witness, the question then is, does Donald Trump take the stand? And Trump's lawyers said that has not yet been determined, but that will be the next big question. And if Trump doesn't, then they would move pretty quickly to closing arguments, and then the jury could get the case and deliberations could begin as soon as next week. If Donald Trump does take the stand, then that changes this timeline pretty significantly.
So I got to sit in on one day of the trial last Thursday. It was fascinating. You've been sitting inside there for going on 4 weeks now. What's it been like to watch this historic trial play out right in front of you?
In some ways, this is like any other trial. I've covered more than 24 trials because the judge is handling this as a normal case. He's treating Trump just like anyone else. The prosecution's putting on their case. Trump is putting on his cross-examination of these witnesses. But obviously, it's not. It's different. And the fact that it is a former president in there is not lost on anyone. There's increased security. You know, this was just a recent moment in history when we were all covering these stories, and now we're seeing the main characters come in, tell their stories under oath, be pushed and prodded by the cross-examination to unearth the truth. So we're getting a lot of the behind-the-scenes things that we've already seen so much of in the real time that it was playing out just a few years ago. I mean, one thing too that as a criminal case, there is so much extra weight and intensity in this moment. Even though if convicted, Trump is not facing decades in prison, but he could go to prison. And I remember when Donald Trump walked in for his arraignment, it was the first of the criminal charges that he faced. It was the first time that has ever happened to a former president. And when he walked in the door, there was such an intensity to the moment. And as you probably remember, when he walks in the door in this courthouse, it's very quiet. It's almost eerily quiet as you see him walk to the defense table and for the proceedings to get underway. But now that we are so close to there being jury deliberations and a verdict in this case, it feels like the intensity is growing because there is nothing like sitting in the courtroom for the moment when they're waiting for that moment of when the judge or the jury, depending on how it's handled, says guilty or not guilty. And that is such a significant moment in someone's life. And it's really something to sit there and witness.
Right. And in this case, in the country's life. Kara Scannell, thank you so much. With us now to give judges' perspectives of the cases are retired judges Jill Konviser and George Grasso. Thanks to both of you for joining. Judge, Konviser, let me start with you. How do you think the defense has done in terms of undermining Michael Cohen's credibility so far?
I think they came out of the box fairly strong. The truth is, Michael Cohen is low-hanging fruit. Even a junior lawyer could probably have a whole field day with Michael Cohen because he really is a damaged witness. He has perjured himself before. So he's really someone who they need to get under his skin. But the truth is, the fact that he's lied before is definitely something that will assist the defense. I think they should come out hitting hard. I think you'll see more of that tomorrow. because Mr. Cohen kept his composure, which they were hoping he wouldn't. So we'll see what happens tomorrow in that regard.
Judge Grasso, you've been inside the courtroom every day of Trump's trial. I know no one can tell exactly what jurors are thinking, but in your view, do you think Cohen's testimony is holding together well enough, or is Todd Blanche unraveling it and sowing reasonable doubts in the jury's minds?
So far, I think it's holding together very well. I thought Todd Blanche came out of the gate very strong and aggressive. He went right to some insulting tweet Cohen made about him personally, but the judge shut that down because it's not about Todd Blanche. And I think that Todd Blanche started to run out of steam. Sure, as Judge Conviser said, in some respects, Michael Cohen is low-hanging fruit because you've got prior convictions, you've got perjury. But what about the center of his testimony, the core elements of his testimony? So far as that goes, he hasn't been nicked. And the thing about Michael Cohen's testimony is not only did he add new critical information, putting Donald Trump right in the middle of the plot, the so-called Trump Tower conspiracy, starting in August of 2015 in Trump Tower. Michael Cohen brought that all the way into Trump Tower with Weisselberg, on or about January 17th of 2017, and then into the Oval Office on February 8th. So they've got a lot to overcome there. It was a clean narrative. It was a strong narrative. It was compelling, and the defense still has a big problem to overcome with Michael Cohen. We'll see if they can get more steam when we're back in court tomorrow, but for the sake of their case, they better.
Judge Conviser, do you think the prosecution has met the burden beyond a reasonable doubt and proved that not only were these business records falsified, but they were falsified in the service of a different crime, this federal crime of hiding information from the public and causing election interference?
Well, obviously, that's a decision that will be made by the jury who's heard all the evidence. It's really their purview. I certainly think the people have put out there evidence to support their claims to that extent. Whether or not the jury decides to credit it is a different story. And that is why the cross-examination of Michael Cohen by Todd Blanche is so important, because the truth is, if Todd Blanche gets under his skin and creates a situation where the jurors do not believe him, the people probably won't prevail. The converse is also true. And I assume that the DAs are going to argue with respect to Michael Cohen that even a broken clock is right twice a day. We told you who he was. We told you what his background is. We didn't hide that. We don't get to pick our witnesses. We'd love to have a member of the clergy on the stand, but this is what we have. And this is why you need to believe him. And that's why, and I know your show has spoken about this, why they started with a guy like Pecker and went through all the steps so that when Michael Cohen came on, the jury could say, aha, he is dotting the I's and crossing the T's. At least that's the government's hope.
Judge Grasso?
So I totally agree with Judge Conviser. I mean, it's the jury that ultimately gets to make that decision. But if the question is, have the people done enough to legally put the jury in the position where it will go to the jury, and do they have enough evidence already on the record right now to find Donald Trump guilty in this case? The answer is absolutely yes.
I interviewed a retired U.S. District Court judge yesterday. I'll come right to you, Judge Conviser. A different court judge yesterday who said it was disruptive when Trump surrogates showed up in the courtroom during Michael Cohen's testimony. Take a listen.
I do think it was wrong of them to walk in during the testimony, walk to the front row, be seated, and I thought the judge did the exact right thing in ignoring it and not making a big point of it. If he had done that in front of the jury would have focused on these people and maybe even figured out who they were.
Judge Conviser, do you agree?
I do. I think it was disruptive. I guess they thought they were sending a message or trying to intimidate someone, that's just not going to work in a court of law. These people, along with the defendant, quite frankly, has treated the courtroom as a campaign rally, and it's not. And I would think that government governors or Congress people would have a great deal of respect for the courtroom and the courtroom arena. That is, at the end of the day, the basis of the judiciary, a branch of our government. And the fact that they went in the way they did was inappropriate at best, and probably unkind as well. It really was a spectacle for no reason.